Hi everyone, welcome to Quantitative Methods in Business Foundations. This is a tutorial about Python basics. It is made for those students in the class who already have a very good mathematical background and who would like to discover something else during this week that is not the basic math that we do. So in this sense, this tutorial is meant to give you a new skill, Python. So we're going to do very much the basics here. The goal is really for you to have a bit of Python knowledge, enough to get you comfortable for other classes that use Python. So we're going to start off by going over how we just even run Python code on a computer. So there are many ways of doing this. One way is to use what we call Anaconda and Jupyter Notebooks within the context of Anaconda. Now, the issue with that is that you have to download different files on your computer, and this adds a kind of barrier to entry. So we're going to be skipping this barrier to entry by using an online system to run lines of code. So that's called Google Colab that you see here. So to access Google Colab, just open your Google browser and type in Google Colab, and it's the first link that you would see. Now, as a quick remark, the downside of using Google Colab is that it forces you to create a Gmail address if you don't already have one. And of course, it means that Google has access to the code that you're running. Okay, so I'm going to click on Google Colab and something like this opens up. I'm going to go to import here and I'm going to pick the file that you've normally downloaded from the course platform. So Python Basics. So I'm going to open that and import that. So this can be viewed as a kind of worksheet, if you will, on Python. So it's called what we call a Python notebook. And a couple of things about it. So this is how it presents. So right now you've uploaded your Python basics files. It's any changes you'll make, for example, when you want to save what you've done. So when you want to save what you've done, it will be saved not where you've saved your initial file that you just uploaded, but in your Google Drive. So make sure to go look there if you realize that you want to open your past attempts, then that is where they'll be. Okay, so that's one thing. Another thing is that you can upload data files. So we're not going to be needing that right now because we don't have any data files to upload in this first setup, but you may have to down the line, and the way to do that is to come to this folder icon here, click on it, and then click on this. And you can upload different files that you can use afterwards. So for example, data files, by just clicking on a data file. We don't have any here, so I'm not going to do it, but by clicking on the data file, and then you'll have it available in your environment. Now going back to this notebook. So this is what it looks like. And we have two kinds of cells going around here. So one is what we call a text cell, looks something like this. It's got a white background, and something that's called a coding cell that looks like this. So to add a text cell or code cell, you can do it up here. So if I add a text cell, I get something that looks like this here, and I can type something into it. My name is Georgina, for example. And then I can, if I click elsewhere, that becomes a line of text. I can delete this by clicking here on the bin. So these are different text cells that you see. They serve to explain what is going on in this notebook. Now you have also coding cells, such as this one, where you input code and the code is then read by the computer. Now how to add coding cells? Well, just click on this. Now let's take a look at our first two lines of code and what they're doing. So in this setup, Python always starts by importing what we call packages or libraries into your environment. So the idea here is that Python is a very basic shell. It doesn't contain a lot in it, but plenty of people have invented what we call additional packages, if you will, that have more sophisticated routines in them. So they're not automatically loaded when you use Python, so you need to call them. This will bring them, this is kind of like if you turn on an app in your phone, it's running in the background, it's there if you need it. Now, typically we also need to install these packages before we actually import them. As we're working in Google Colab, that's not an issue. You don't have to install these packages, they're already installed. You just have to import them. So this is what we're doing here. We're importing NumPy, which is a package, as NP, and we're importing pandas as PD. To run this cell, you can either press on this play button here, or you can do Control Enter. There the cell has run. Now, what is this cell doing? So it's importing NumPy, which is a package which deals with arrays. That's a type of data structure in Python. And we're importing NumPy as NP. So now to the computer, NumPy is known as NP, okay? So if I want to call a function that belongs to NumPy, I will do so by typing in np.thefunction. So np.array will call the arrays in NumPy. So that's to avoid having to type out NumPy every time. Same thing for PD. Pandas is PD. Pandas is a package that's for data frames, which is another type of data structure, which is also very common in data science applications. So we've run these 2 lines. Now we're able to move on to really the coding. So as you see here, there are empty coding cells in the file. I expect you to fill those in with your lines of code. Generally, I give you indications as to what you should be doing, so that way you know how this works. So let's look at, for example, the print command, which is what this first part is about. So the print command enables us to see what is going on in the background. So we use it this way. We type in print hello world, and underneath appears the thing we wanted to print that's in parentheses here, which is hello world. Now we put hello world in quotation marks because they're words, and this signals to Python that you're inputting a word. So I'm going to let you continue on this. So fill in all of the lines that you see that are empty. The goal here is really to get you to practice. So in coding, there are no shortcuts. It's much, much better for you to sit on your own and struggle and not be able to get everything right the first time than for you to look immediately at the solutions and get the solutions and then move on. You're learning nothing when you're looking at the solutions immediately. Coding is one of those topics where to get good at it, you need to practice and you need to make mistakes. The reason behind this is because when you make mistakes, you get error messages in Python, and sometimes those error messages can be a bit cryptic. The more you've been exposed to different error messages and had to fix them on your own, so find the problem that led to that error message, the more down the line when you see an error message, you'll be able to immediately understand what that's referring to, where you've made the mistake, and you'll be able to debug your code. So this is really something that's incredibly important to do in any kind of coding, is to just put the time in, make those mistakes, make those errors, learn how to debug your code slowly. And eventually you'll get to a point where you're either not making many mistakes anymore, but if you do make mistakes, then you're able to fix them very quickly. So sometimes people get a bit rebutted by that first part, which is where you make a lot of mistakes, you find it very frustrating, and you're not progressing in the way that you should be. I invite you to persevere at that point in time. You need to keep pushing through. It will become easy very soon. So you need to just push through that first part, which is frustrating and complicated. And that's why I'm giving you solutions, so you can, when you do get very frustrated and can't see where your mistake is, you can go and take a look at what the correct line of code would look like. Okay? But I don't recommend you go immediately to the solutions. I recommend that you spend some time trying to figure out what went wrong. Now, that being said, if you have any questions, of course, you're more than welcome to come to me, and I'll be happy to explain what's going on and the way you can think about the error messages that you're getting. Okay, so this is the Python basics part. Once you're wrapped up doing this, then you have enough competencies to get started on some machine learning. So that will be in the separate folder on the course platform about machine learning basics.